Today we're going over the Commander cards that are most worth buying for the month of April.
I'm Mia, and I put my cards down on the table.
I'm Beezy. I'm never not flicking my cards, maybe even if I'm not playing Magic. We're the Nitpicking Nerds, sponsored by Card Kingdom. And now April is a very special month for us. It is both of our birthday months. So we're partnering with Card Kingdom to do a little bit of a competition this month.
There are coupon codes. You can save 15% on Magic supplies, and you could use the code miabday or beezybday if you want him to win, but I highly recommend you don't.
Yeah, you have to pick one for each order, but you can use both if you order twice. So get over the link in the description, figure out which Nitpicking nerd you like best, and save some money.
We're also sponsored by Dragon Shield, best sleeves in the multiverse.
Good sleeves.
If you use the code
NERDS,
you could save 5% of your entire order, which they also have on their site, Nitpicking Nerd sleeves, which have our logo, which have our cat Amber, and that will really help the channel. And you could get some awesome art in the meantime.
You gotta rep the brand, you gotta support the brand, and you gotta have the best sleeves at the table. That's the only rule that we have when we play. I just made it up. Okay, Moxfield is a sponsor, but not yet. We're gonna bamboozle you with the ad later. And we gotta give a special shout out to our patrons, because like I say, these lights that are on, they turn off without Patreon. So getting into the cards most worth buying, that does not mean spend $17,000 towards your son's tuition on 78,000 copies of one 50-cent card. We're not trying to buy out and deprive everybody else in the community of cards. We're saying, hey, these cards, the price they're at right now, they're 100% worth buying one, two, maybe three copies for your Commander decks. It's going to go really well for you. They slot in, they're very strong, and they're worth more in our heads versus what you get out of them than what they're at right now, if that makes sense.
But if you want to talk about specs, that is later. But right now, we're going to talk about cards that are most worth buying. The first one being a pre-con card. It's Hullbreaker Horror at $2.29. 5 blue for a 7/8 with flash that says it can't be countered, so don't hold up any counter spells for it. Whenever you cast a spell, you choose up to 1. You can return target spell you don't control to its owner's hand, or you can return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. This is such a spicy card. This hurts every single time it comes down, and to see it at $2.29, this can even make infinite mana combos.
You know, Mia is someone I think who does harbor a lot of spite in her heart at times, and I love that you're never going to let them down for putting this in a pre-con.
I think
this card slaps.
This is such a good card. I think that, you know, there are so many cards that are so surprising to be put in pre-cons. That's like the Jeska's Wills. When that gets reprinted, I'm always very surprised. When Hullbreaker Horror is in a pre-con, I'm always very, very surprised because this is so spicy, and to the point where there can be infinite combos with this in pre-cons nowadays. That's crazy to me.
I think this card is ridiculous. I think this card dominates the board almost by itself. It's very hard to kill once it's out, because if they tap out for a removal spell, you can cast an instant or something and bounce it, and then they have to go through that whole thing all over again. And you can even bounce Hullbreaker Horror back to your hand. I had to double check because this card reads like a fever dream, and it's like, really? I get all the upsides? Like, yeah, you just get all the upside ever. And I think this plays like a $15 card. I would not be upset if this card had never been reprinted to pay $15 for it, because it is like one of the best reanimator targets, cards to cheat out, combo enablers, like you said, that goes off with literally Soul Ring plus any 0-drop rock, of which there are many that cost like 5 cents. So now that this is $2.29, you could probably build like a ridiculously strong $50 to $100 budget deck that still has combos and still can control the board no problem.
It's so nasty. I cheated this out turn 3 a couple games ago, and it completely dominated the board, especially if you can copy it. 2 on the board? That is just shenanigans left and right.
This card is so powerful. This isn't a CDH channel, but this card is so strong that there are CDH decks that play 0 creatures so they can polymorph into this stupid thing and then control the whole game from there and set up their combos. Like, this thing, ridiculous. It's one of the strongest cards, I think, that is less than $3 right now.
I completely agree with that, and I'm happy to see it get reprinted quite a fair amount, because as you mentioned, there are some cards up there that are on the top end. We're looking at things like Archon of Cruelty and stuff like that, where it is like $10, $15, $20, and people are paying it, and it's worth it because these are great reanimation targets. These are great like game enders. These are great things that people are scared of on the board. And I would expect to see this up there if it hadn't gotten reprinted a few times.
Totally. This could be a game changer, and I wouldn't even bat an eye. We're going to shift gears, though. We're going to talk about our mana base. We're going to talk about all 10 check lands. I think this is the first time in a long time that they are all very reasonably priced. The enemies you can get for like 69 cents. They're all under $1. And the allied ones, they only go up. The highest one I think is Dragon Skull Summit, and that goes up to $2.29. But these just enter untapped. For example, Glacial Fortress enters untapped if you have a plains or an island, and it makes white or blue, and they have one for every color pair. I just thought that, like, these weren't appearing in my budget decks, and there was like this weird spot where they were like less than 5, but more than 150. And I was like, oh, I guess I just don't play these in budget decks now. But I think we're starting to get there, and I'm really happy to just pick up, like, go buy one of each. Seriously, you're going to play them all. They're auto includes in like every 2 and a lot of 3-color decks.
I think they're so great in there, especially if you are building with a lot of basics, if you can always fetch your Triome or something like that. If you're playing maybe some of the Surveillance, because it says you control a plains or an island, it doesn't say basic or anything. So as long as you have access to these types of lands, you're able to have this come in untapped. As you mentioned earlier, I completely agree. It was hard to build a $100 deck and seeing one of these at like $350 or something. I don't think it's worth that chunk of your deck if it's like, oh, it's 3% of my deck's budget. I don't think it's worth that. But seeing them at that $1 mark for the enemy ones, I think that's great.
Definitely worth picking up one or all or 5 random ones of these. I think the allied ones they were holding out a little bit longer, and I think maybe they showed up in some precons now, and I'm just happy to see it. I really am. Next, another land is Command Beacon, $7.99 for this one. It enters untapped, makes colorless, and you can tap and sacrifice it to put your commander into your hand from the command zone. This is a card that started out pretty low, jumped up a lot, I think, from Commander Legends, the original, and then it was like 11 or 12 bucks, and now it's dropping. It dropped to 6, and it's getting reprinted in Dragonstorm precons. So it's like right at that $8 mark right now, but I'm telling you, it's about to drop a little bit lower once people get the precons in their hand. So keep an eye on this and try to pick it up for like 6.
Yeah, I think 6 would be a good price, but $7.99 is still great too. I remember when this was like $12.15.
Oh yeah.
If your deck is very centric around your commander, 1 or 2 instances of commander attacks can really throw off your game plan. So having this is such a nice failsafe to be able to put that back into your hand.
Well, there's also like the other angle of graveyard / land / life from the loam decks. You kind of just do I have an extra land drop. I'll just always use Command Beacon. Now my commander just doesn't have tax. I have to pay the, quote unquote 1 mana of sacrificing the beacon, and then, casting your commander from there. But it's like, oh cool, my 6-drop commander, my Muldrotha, is costs 10. Well, now that I have Command Beacon, I randomly pulled the best possible example out of my head, because Muldrotha just goes, cool, play it again.
Yeah.
And then you just never have command tax. It's definitely solid. There's probably some like tricky stuff you can do with it too, but I think it has a lot of utility. It's not a card you see a lot in like 4-color decks, but 3, 2, and 1, I think you're still pretty happy.
Keep an eye on it, because as we mentioned earlier, it might go down. It probably will go down, but this is still a great price, and I'd be happy to pay for it. And Moxfield, the best place online to build a deck.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Bamboozled.
Absolutely bamboozled. You can see every single place you're playing Command Beacon by typing it into your search bar where it says your decks, and it'll bring up all the decks that have it in it.
If you're like us, you have a lot of brews and retired decks going on. Moxfield lets you sort everything into folders and then put the folders into folders. It's actually really great. And then, like you said, the search function still works.
It's
even
so
if
good.
Things are sealed away in 5 layers of folders. You can go, Command Beacon. Oh, I'm playing that in 3 decks, and I want to buy it for 3 more. Moxfield, it's absolutely fantastic. But next is going to be a card that we played a little bit in Commander Cube, and you hated it. So
I think it's so good. It's Dreamtide Whale at $1.99, 2 and a blue, 7/5 vanishing 2. Whenever a player casts their second spell each turn, you proliferate. I think that this is the equivalent of it fueling itself, right? It's very easy to get your second spell each turn, and even if they don't do it, you can do it too. We've seen this how many times have you seen Lotho trigger and people lose life and get, stuff? I feel like it is so easy for anyone at the table to cast their second spell. And I feel like this is, unless you're playing poison, this is one of the cards that they will not stop and not cast their second spell for. But at that point, you're keeping it on the board. The Vanishing 2 doesn't matter, because as long as you can trigger it, that means it'll stick around for 1 more turn. For 3 mana, you're getting a 7/5. That's just a really big beater at that point.
I think this card is fantastic.
Yeah, it just does everything. It punches in, it proliferates, and it just fuels itself.
Yeah, I think for poison, that's almost a separate category. I have like poison and non-poison. For poison, this is one of the best cards in the entire format, full stop. And I think the text that switches a little bit. It says your opponents can't cast 2 spells per turn, because if they do, they're just going to lose the game, and the other players are going to get mad at them because you can't give poison that kind of value off of a 10% hit to everyone's life total. So in poison, it's like one of the best things ever, and I would be thrilled if I just had a poison deck and you could told me, give me $2 and I'll give you this magic card.
Yeah. I love it in that deck. It's so good.
And then there's the rest of it, which is like planeswalkers, loyalty, +1/+1 counters, maybe like charge counters to like a lesser extent. And I think even there, you're getting like a ton of power, a ton of onboard presence. I think this is fantastic on a planeswalker deck too. Plus, this is only 3 mana. So casting it on turn 3 is probably fine. You can probably just run it out. But in the later turns, when you draw it late, you can cast it and another spell very easily.
It's important because it also doesn't trigger it triggers more than one player per turn. So on the end step, if there's like a counter war or something, but you had already cast 2 spells that turn, if each person also casts 2 spells because they're countering each other's stuff on end step, you will still get more proliferates out of it. It just doesn't limit itself. I think that's one of the craziest parts about it.
I'm kind of surprised I'm not playing this anywhere. We took it out of our commander cube because it was just too good.
It was too good.
It was too good for that environment.
It was so easy to trigger. Everyone was triggering it. And you can't fall behind in Commander Cube to the point where you are not casting 2 spells. That just gives everyone too much advantage.
Yeah, board state is so relevant. I think this, I'm definitely surprised this is low. I almost kind of want to buy like 2 speculative copies because I feel like I'm just going to need this. I don't have a counters deck right now. Maybe I should have one. Next is a card we've been really happy with. And if you are excited about Jumbo Cactuar and absolutely destroying people who try to play that card, which everyone will, you should try Aloran's Searing Light. It is $1.49 for the foil printing. It's 2 white red for an instant. Each opponent exiles a creature with the greatest power among creatures that player controls. And if you have Spell Mastery, which is 2 or more instants or sorceries in your graveyard, it deals damage to each opponent equal to the power of the creature they exiled. So in the case of Jumbo Cactuar, boom, you're dead. But realistically, this is a 4-mana 3-for-1 on an instant that exiles, so no recursion, and they just get nugged for some damage if we're in the mid to late game?
I think that Boros gets the short end of the stick so often. So I'm happy to see that they have a very beefy instant where it's a 3-for-1 because black is usually the one that gets the 3-for-1.
Soul Shatter.
Yeah, which is why I was so happy when Unexplained Absence came out.
Yeah.
But Aloran Searing Light not only removes it, but also deals the damage to everyone. I think that it's finally getting a little bit of heat. And I'm very surprised to see that Lord of the Rings was the one who brought the heat to Boros with things like Galadriel's Dismissal and Aloran Searing Light.
Yeah, I mean, say what you will about the Lord of the Rings like holiday bundle release. All the cards in it were pretty good. This is definitely one of them, and it's probably a card you maybe didn't even hear about if you missed that. Notably with that set, I think the Pringles are pretty bad, so the foils are known to curve. So the foil printing of this card is $1.50. The non-foil printing is $4.50. But if you've got a way to smooth out Pringles, if you're like a book fan or one of those bag fans or like the silica gel packets, if you've got a way to combat Pringles, just get it for $1.50 and it won't be that big of a deal. I will literally just take a card and smooth it out on a table edge. I don't care. I know I'm going to be playing with this thing. I'm not going to sell it. So Aloran Searing Light's really good pickup at $1.50. I think that this is probably almost like a must-play card if you're in Boros colors, specifically red and white.
I think it depends on how much mana the deck is trying to run. Because if you're playing something where your like curve tops out at like 3.5, 4,
That seems pretty rare.
I know, but I'm just saying that Boros is the place where you'd be playing the most aggro. So maybe if it fits into your curve, I'd highly recommend it.
Look, I don't care whether this thing is the top of your curve or the middle of your curve. I think you should probably be playing it because even in those average mana value 0.7 decks, you're going to deal damage to people, and it's like a way to close out the game. Next is a card that I think was just way too expensive for what it is.
Oh, yeah.
I love Bloodghast, but it was like $8, and it's never been $8 good in Commander. It's just fine. It's pretty solid. There's a bunch of cool things you can do with it, and I never, ever, ever wanted to shell out $8 for it. Why don't you give us a read?
It's a black for 2/1. It can't block though, but it has haste as long as the opponent has 10 or less life. When a land you control enters, you can return it from the graveyard to the battlefield. This got reprinted twice, which I think is so interesting because it was back to back.
It was.
It was in a precon and it was also in Aether Drift, so with that like funky new art too.
Yeah, super hard to look at.
I thought it was like $10, $12. I remember having a couple copies and I wanted to like slot it in somewhere, try and see if it had a home. No, it doesn't have a home in budget decks when it's $10, but at $1.29, I think it's great, especially if you can bring it back multiple times and make sure it's like sacrifice fodder.
Yeah, this is the perfect card. You just want to mill it or surveil it or discard it, and then every time you play a land, fetch lands count for double, you get an extra dies trigger or an extra enters trigger. So I'm thinking like Elas, Ilkor, Bastion of Remembrance, Midnight Reaper, Grim Horror Specs, High Society Hunter. You're never attacking with this. This is basically like, it's never going to do anything as a creature other than the thing it's the best at, die. I'm sorry, Bloodghast, but you are just a factory of death for me to profit off of. And it's pretty solid. It's not a card that's like a bracket 4 card. It's just pretty good, and I'm super stoked that it's now affordable.
Yeah, it's getting those pretty good cards at $10 unless you had it hanging around or you opened it or something. Always feels awful.
It sucks. I would feel terrible buying this at 10.
But I think as a piece, like a value piece, it's so great. And we're seeing so many more of those like dies, triggers, enters, triggers as the game is just printing out way more cards. High Society Hunter is one of the newer ones. Meat Hook Massacre also just got reprinted in Innistrad Remastered. We're seeing more of that because it's like 27 now or something.
Do you call it Meat Hook Remastered?
No, I don't. I call it the Meat Hook Massacre.
Well, what if it's the remastered printing?
Then I will wait for you to say that in our games.
And I'll stumble through it every time. Next up, we have a unicorn. What do we got?
It's Emil the Blessed at $6.49. 2 white for a 4/4. If you pay 3, exile another target creature you control, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. When another creature you control enters, you can pay green or white. If you do, you put 1/1 counter on it. If it's a unicorn, you put 2 1/1 counters on it.
It's not going to be a unicorn.
It's not going to be a unicorn. This is a thing where you can flicker things. If you have like Intruder Alarm and a mana dork that produces more than 3, you can make infinite mana. I've done this multiple times with like Bloom Tender and Intruder Alarm. It's very, very nasty. Or it's just a value piece in general if you have that extra 3 mana lying around.
Yeah, you will need a haste enabler, and that might seem like a lot of cards, but this is a card that is fine by itself because it does flicker. It does get incremental advantage. And at the middle of the game, turn 7, turn 8, maybe that's late game, whatever, you go, hey, I got 4 different permanents in play that I would want to play individually. They go infinite. You die. And I think that's definitely one of the upsides of this card. It's also just really beefy. It's a 4-mana 4/4, so you just play it and hold up like... I don't think attacking and blocking is the most relevant thing in Commander, but I appreciate that this isn't like a 2/2, because it could have been.
Yeah.
4/4, you hold down the fort a little bit. It's nice to have.
Yeah, I think that there's so many times where people will be like, okay, well, I'm going to slap in for a little extra damage because don't miss free attacks, as we often say. But when you have a 4/4 on the board, they can't do that. So it's like the 2 damage that might add up here and there, that will add up to 10 or 12 over the course of the game because you just can't get rid of your value pieces, will end up saving you at least a couple points.
And it's also nice to be able to hold up instants, maybe pass your turn with all your mana up, and you've got, 9 mana, so like 3 instances of Emil activations. It protects your other creatures from spot removal. It says that they can't do that. They have to get rid of Emil first, and if they do that, cool. Then you can go on a blink train and do that stuff. And if you have a thing like a Restoration Angel, now all your creatures kind of have hexproof because you'll just blink the Resto Angel, which blinks Emil, which fizzles the removal spell they were going to play. So there's a ton of like interesting moves you could make with Emil on top of back when Dockside was legal, you just went infinite with it. And any card like that, that's a ritual, you can just go infinite with. If you can reduce the mana value of the ability, like with the Training Grounds, I don't know how you ever lose that game. So Emil is a sweet one. It's good. It's good at 650. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I think so too. I remember around Commander Masters, not Commander Masters. I think it was like Commander Legends or somewhere where it got reprinted. Right before that, it was very, very expensive.
Yeah, because it was a Jumpstart exclusive for a while.
Yeah, I think so. But paying all this money, especially when you brew as much as we do, does not feel good. And getting that bill and you're like, ugh. But $650, great price for it.
This next card we do not talk about on this channel enough. This card is ridiculous. If you could only buy one card off of this whole list, gotta be Culling Ritual. It is $1.29 steal. What a steal. It's 2 green-black for a sorcery. Destroy each non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less, and you add black or green for each permanent destroyed this way. I can't even explain how back-breakingly amazing this card has been. Every time I've seen it cast for the last 3 years since it came out in Strixhaven, which was like 2020 or 2021.
Yeah, it is so, so good. I played it recently in a deck that you guys will see on the channel later, and it is amazing. I played it into a board where there was like Ocelot Pride and tokens. What did you have?
I had a crappy enchantment out. I had a couple mana dorks.
Yeah, and it just blew up the entire board, and then I'm like, okay, it's turn 3 or 4, and I cast Bolus and Citadel with the mana.
And then obviously you go from there. But
yeah,
this thing just powers out ridiculous plays in addition to controlling the board. It takes out all the tokens, no matter how big they are. Most tokens have a mana value of 0. So all that stuff goes away. If you're playing against a tokens deck, this card feels like a joke because you're like, wait, I pay 4 to make 12 and I blew up your whole board? Like, what is happening? It is fantastic. I find it hard to lose after resolving a Culling Ritual. At bare minimum, I think if you resolve it, you will be the threat at the table. I have it in a Beledros Witherbloom deck. That's perfect for this because you have a big commander that wants a lot of mana. It's mana hungry. You play this on turn 4, you can easily get 7. It's not that hard to imagine. Also, the higher power you play, bracket 3 and bracket 4 is probably where this card thrives the most because that's where you're going to get the most Mystic Remoras, Elvish Mystic, Utopia Sprawl, like all this little crap, like a Hermit Druid floating around, that just gets wiped away. We don't talk about this card enough. I'm sorry that we haven't talked about it enough because we love it.
It even destroys your stuff. So if you can just produce a lot of stuff, if you're producing a bunch of clues and stuff that you aren't going to use anyways, and you blow it up, that's just mana. That's just a ritual for you. We even saw it in CEDH, not a CEDH channel, as I must tell you again. But we watched Cam and Dylan play Felithar, and it was so nasty. They had a Forbidden Orchard out there giving away spirit tokens, and then they blew them all up with Culling Ritual and made it a mini ritual for themselves. You can be doing that too. BZ has a Marchesa deck that gives away stuff. If your deck has that theme and can also run green and black, you could be doing that and then blowing all of their stuff up for value.
Yet another reason I love Field of the Dead, because as you make these expendable tokens that you hope to eventually get value out of, you go, oh cool, now they're mana. Now I'm going to sacrifice them for mana basically, and then power out something else. I don't want to talk the whole video about Culling Ritual. Please play this card. It's unreal. It is unreal. Jaheira, Friend of the Forest, is next. $5.49 for a 2-mana, 2 and a green, 2/3. Tokens you control have tap, add a green, and you choose a background. No one cares. That's not your commander. This is a card that, I mean, sure, not to disrespect our editor, Chris. It can be your commander. He has a commander combination for every color that Jaheira can be with. But it's a very strong card in a tokens deck. Food, clue, treasures, 1/1s, anything.
Yeah, it really is. I had this in my elf deck because she is also an elf, human, and druid, maybe. I don't know. She's like 3 types. One of them is elf. And it really synergized there because all of my 1/1s turned into, mana, which was super nice. All of them were now mana dorks. But you've had it also in clue decks, I think. You had some little like dinky treasure deck where it was like also turning them into, you don't have to spend that by sacrificing it. It's so nice to be able to use it for mana, and then also if you need it later, sag it for whatever its original value was.
Yeah, she works best I think with clues because they can tap for green and they don't tap to sack to draw a card. So if you tap 2 clues, you make 2 green mana and then sack one of the tapped clues to draw a card, and it just sort of goes off from there. It really, and also because these tokens like clues, food, treasure, blood are artifacts, as soon as you make them, you can tap them. So it kind of reduces the next thing, and you can start triple or quadruple spelling really easily. And as we know, the player who spends the most mana in a commander game oftentimes will win, which is why Culling Ritual is so great.
Jaheira, overall, a great 3-drop. Just turning on all these tokens into mana is great. I mean, you love Elven Chorus, and that's 1 more mana than Jaheira. So.
Yeah, this is an effect we don't really see. There's not a lot of tokens you control make mana. So this being the only one, I'm not upset to pay $5.50 for it. It feels like Jaheira's really cornered the market on making tokens tap for mana. There's other ways to do it, but they don't specifically say tokens. So this is the most open-ended way to do that.
The next one is going to be the Speed Demon at $2.49. 5 mana, 5/5 Flampler with Start Your Engines. I love Start Your Engines, but if you need a refresher, when something with Start Your Engines comes down, your speed is going to go to 1. At max speed is going to be when you get all your max speed effects, which is 4, and you're going to get max speed anytime it is your turn and you deal damage to one of the other players. At the beginning of your end step, you draw X cards and lose X life, where X is your speed. I think that this is very cool, and I think that if you are able to gain some life passively in those Orzhov type decks, you might be able to utilize this very well. Plus, it also like fuels itself to get your speed up to 4 because it has Flample. So even if they block with a little 1/1, Ornithopter or whatever, you are able to bleed through, get that damage down, and then increase your speed.
Yeah, this is sort of a speculative one. We have not played this card, but I look at it and I go, I think people are a little low on Start Your Engines. Because I look at it and I go, okay, 5 mana, 5/5 Flampler, sure. But at the end step, you draw X, where X is your speed, and you lose X. So you always draw 1. So this kind of like makes you some weird exclusive monarch. And it's really easy to go play this, get an attack in on one of 3 other players. If you play this on turn 5, I promise someone doesn't have a blocker for your 2/2, or somebody's not going to trade off their mana dork. So you get through, and it's kind of like, now I just draw 2 every turn on my end step. I can't think of too many cards in Magic that cost 5 and just draw me 2 basically right away and then continuously every turn. So the Speed Demon seems pretty good. I will say, haven't played with it, and maybe I'll play with it and Speed Demon will suck, but I really don't think that's the case. It seems pretty good to me. And just to clarify on speed, you can only increase speed once per turn, so you can only go play it, start at 1, increase it to 2, and then I think that's the average case for this, though. You're going to get 2 speed almost all the time, and then you just draw 2 cards.
I also believe that people are very low on speed when they really shouldn't be, especially if you're winning games through combat or pinging with impact tremors or like Perforos.
Bastion remembers.
Yeah, just like there are ways to be able to increase your speed on your turn that are, and even though it seems a little slow, if you can get down a type of speed effect very quickly, or if you're able to utilize the speed effects immediately, like with this, I think it's not that tough and not that bad. The worst thing that is one more thing to keep track of, but it's not like Monarch where it can shift back and forth or you can lose speed or something like that. It can never be lost. So I think that it's so nice to have that as a static, even if only one of your cards or 2 of your cards in your deck say, start your engines.
Yeah, if you're worried about that, that's a good point, honestly, because the ring tempts you. I'm sorry. I'm not going to play any ring tempts me cards for the most part because I don't. This is like such an annoying thing to keep track of for me. It's like it's a 4-paragraph token that like is completely different and cumulative. And this is just a number. It's just a number that's 1 to 4. And says draw X. Just plug in the number. It's very simple for that. People don't sleep on max speed. It's not that hard. It only takes 3 turns to max it out, including the turn you play it. So play it, go to 2. Play an attack, go to 2, then 3, then 4. Boom, you're there. Draw 4 cards off Speed Demon.
Just because people didn't like Aether Drift doesn't mean there weren't some bangers in Aether Drift. As I really liked, as I might have mentioned in a previous episode, the Soul Ring land that would start your engines. I think that's a great one.
Oh, Morgana, wait
yeah, I think that there are some bangers. Everyone loved Hashaton. Everyone loved Mendicant Core. Who's to say there weren't other bangers that we just forgot about or overlooked because Aether Drift, all in all, was not a commander-focused set?
Yeah, as soon as I get a hold of a Speed Demon, because I barely opened any Aether Drift, I will try it out in a deck. And next, we're going to go to a card that was in one of the Aether Drift precons, the Unholy Grotto. 99 cents is pretty cheap for a land that taps for colorless or says black tap, put a zombie from your graveyard on top of your library. I need a Volrath Stronghold for one of my decks, and that's a reserve list card. It's kind of different, but I looked at that card's $95.
Really?
So maybe I don't need a Volrath Stronghold for one of my upcoming decks. But this is a cheaper in value, obviously, but cheaper in mana value. It's 1 and a black for a Stronghold to activate. This is black, and it puts zombies on top. So if you're a zombies deck, this kind of seems like a free roll. And I'm not sure, but I think this was a little pricier before. It was from, like, I don't know, Odyssey or, like, one of those really old sets.
Yeah.
Maybe the one that looks like a spider. I don't know what that one is. I can't think.
Maybe that is Odyssey. Maybe that's not Ice Age or anything.
Or maybe I'm wrong and I just sound stupid. Anyway, talk about the card.
Unholy Grotto. Zombie players are always eating good. I feel like there's always infinite combos, and I always feel like zombie players can be running these 2-color like zombies are usually 2 colors. There's never really too many 3-color types. So when you have a colorless land like this and you just have a very cheap ability, it's very easy to slot into your deck. It's not like the Edgars or the Miriams of the world where putting in a colorless deck can really hurt your kind of just like casting ability overall. But I do feel that this is a free roll too, as BZ mentioned, because putting them from graveyard onto the top, I mean, they're going to be in the graveyard to begin with, and saving that from something like a Bajuka Bog or something where everyone will be targeting you on that.
Yeah, if you're playing zombies.
Yeah, you're going to be putting the best thing back and you go, okay, we'll see you next turn.
It's weird because this type of effect that puts things on top, I almost always hate it when it's on a creature or a permanent, but when it's on a land, that's like the secondary feature of it. And you go, cool, when I need it, I'll use it. And you can activate it at instant speed, so that feels better. So when it's on land, I'm always like, oh, Academy Ruins? Hall of Healing Generosity? Volrath Stronghold? Unholy Grotto? Wow. When it's on a creature like, I don't know, there's the 1 red-blue prowess 2/2 flyer that like puts an instant or sorcery on top. I'm like, this thing sucks.
I mean, I was going to mention that too, because of Academy Ruins is the exact same type of thing. And how much of your deck is going to be able to be targeted by Academy Ruins? Well, probably a similar amount in a zombie deck that can be targeted with Unholy Grotto. I think it's a very good include in those decks.
And these cards that are lands that do this are very easy to slot in. So it makes me think that these cards tend to always trend upwards in price. So at $1, cool. If I'm thinking about a zombie deck, I'll just pick this up at $1 and know that a year from now, it might be like $4 and I'll feel pretty good about it.
I mean, we've also seen this in the past. If we want to think about last year and our specs, BZ spec'd on Swarmyard Massacre when the squirrel thing came out. That you bought it, what, like $5?
Yeah, I bought like 5 copies at $5.
It was like very, very low, and it trended up towards 10-ish or something because it was the only place it could be printed. This is a new card. This is at 99 cents. I could easily see it at 3, 4, 5 in a year's time. Zombies are one of the most popular creature types that are being played.
And a lot of people are being exposed to this card for the first time. I don't think a lot of people were playing Onslaught? Odyssey? Well, I don't know what the set is. I'm sorry.
That's on you, Adrian. Please tell us.
Yeah, please let us know, Adrian. Next is Fanatic of Ronas. This card, we all knew it was good, and it's up to $9. I still think that's worth it. 1 and a green for a 1/4. Tap for a green, or if you have a creature with power 4 or greater, tap for 4 green instead. And it also fuels itself somehow because it has Eternalized for 2 green. I wish I bought more of this when it was lower in price, because like everybody went, what? This card is busted. This card is ridiculous. But there was just so much. We were just getting hammered with like a million good cards from MH3, and it was impossible to pin down 1 or 2. And here's one that, you know, the dust has settled, and it turns out it's $9. But it's one of the best 2-mana dorks we've ever had. The fact that it taps for 4 mana means it goes infinite with haste enablers and a meal, like we talked about. Here's one, taps for 4, boom. And it just fuels itself, because if you mill it or it dies, it just comes back as a 4/4 that now taps for 4 mana. It's also a token, so you can populate it if you want to get like really silly.
I think it's so hard to justify 2-mana mana dorks at times because there are so many good 1-mana mana dorks, but if it's going to be tapping for so much more, you can put it in your deck. Those are the things like Bloom Tenders and the Fanatic of Ronuses. This is so good. Green has so much selection for mana dorks to begin with, but the fact that I'm putting this in like Selvala, and it's a very sweaty deck, mind you, shows how good it is, shows how easy it is to get that second mode. Even if you have something like, I have one of the Phyrexian, whichever ones that's like cumulative, sack it at upkeep or whatever.
Like, I think it's Soul Gorger.
Yeah, whichever one is like, you know, it's a gigantic power, but that's what you want with like Selvala anyways. But this will still tap for 4 as long as you have something on the field that taps. And it's like, that doesn't matter if it's a token or something that just incidentally has a ton of power.
I think one of our rules for mana dorks that we haven't really communicated, but that we kind of follow is 1 mana dorks are great, but 2 mana dorks we kind of don't play unless they can make more than 1 mana, like a Devoted Druid or this.
I think that's correct. I would like to say that I play 2 mana dorks a little bit more than you, with the stipulation that I'm not playing green. If we're playing like Ornithopter of Paradise, I probably play a little bit more than you.
Maybe in green decks.
Okay, then. In green decks, yeah, 1 mana dorks amazing, even if they can only tap for a colorless like Boreal Druid. But 2 mana, you gotta be giving me a little bit more. Maybe you give me different colors. Maybe you give me, you know, more mana of some sort. Maybe you give me another type of effect, and that's where it really shines.
Yeah, this card I think is Bloom Tender levels of good. It might even be better, honestly, because it's
half the price too. Bloom Tender's up to like $20.
Yeah, Bloom Tender's pricey, and I think this card might just be better than it. It requires some setup, but it's different from what Bloom Tender requires.
Yeah, I think so. And then you're playing things. I feel like power is so easy to come by nowadays. We're showing you 2 mana for Fanatic of Ronas curve into like a 3 mana Dreamtide Whale or something, which is 7 mana for no reason, or 7 power for no reason. And then you just go, okay, well, this taps for 4 now. That's real cool.
What do we got next?
Up next, we have Savine's Reclamation at 49 cents, 2 and a white for a sorcery. Return target permanent card with mana value 3 or less from the graveyard to the battlefield. If this is cast from the graveyard, you could copy it and choose a new target for the copy. You flashback it also for 4 and a white. This is always relevant. I'm always scared of this card. If you're playing this is just, I'm always worried about like, okay, what's in your graveyard now? What are you playing? Like, can you bring this back? What are you going to copy? My eyes are on your graveyard the second I see this come down.
All right, I have 2 takes about this card. I want to run them by you.
Sure.
You can tell me if I'm based or cringe.
I mean, you're cringe all the time, but you might be based on this take.
What I just said was cringe. So this is White Cultivate. How off base am I? Because I'm playing fetch lands in all of my higher power decks, and you can even play a bunch of Escape Tunnels, Evolving Wilds, Land Cyclers in your lower power decks. I feel like this is as close to that as we have to White Cultivate.
I guess you can play it as White Cultivate if you would like.
That's how I like playing it. Honestly.
I know. You also like playing things like the Replicate one to copy lands, and you say that's Blue Ramp.
It's Blue Skyshroud Claim, first of all, replication technique. But that's beside the point. This card is better than Cultivate, I think, by miles.
Oh, I'll agree with that. I don't like Cultivate very much. I will happily agree that this is better than Cultivate because it's so much more flexible, and you could get non-basics, you could get any sort of permanent. I'll highly agree with you on that one. The first one, technically.
I think when I play this card, I want to have a lot of those land cyclers or fetch lands so that it is always at least a rampant growth type effect. Non-green decks or green decks, I think this still has a ton of applications, because if you're filling the graveyard, it's just your best things that come back. Your Rhystic study got blew up. Well, now it's coming back. And also, I'll bring a fetch land back because I flashed it back. And now I can help pay for the next spell. That's something to also keep in mind, is whatever the permanent is comes in untapped, which is why, for me, getting back lands is so appealing. It's because it's the same rate as a rampant growth. Paying 2 to put one out tapped is the same as paying 3 to put one out untapped.
Yeah, I think that this really, really shines in the higher powered where your targets are just that much more powerful and you're able, that flashback is way scarier to be able to cast it and also get the cast from it from the graveyard. Or if you're milling it over, you're like, oh, well, I still have this value piece in my graveyard. I think the juicier the targets are in the graveyard, the more application this really has in your deck. I'm not sure if I'd really play this in like budgety or very, very low unless they're like one key piece. Like I think our friend Sam has an Abdel Adrian like very glass cannon-y deck and he likes playing this too.
Yeah, I think it's hard not to play this. I will say bracket 3 and above, this is a almost maybe let's say 80% auto include in like 1, 2, and 3 color white decks. I just play it almost all the time.
Yeah, I have to put it into something. I think that this is a great card.
And it's 50 cents.
Yeah,
it's like the cheapest card we talked about today.
Put in your budget decks and your non-budget decks.
Next is another white card that is also 3 mana, but it's an instant. It's called the Copper Codes, and this one's a little more pricey. It's $6.50, but it has Strive. You can pay 1 and a white additional for each target beyond the first, and you're targeting players to make X 1/1s, where X is the number of creatures those opponents control. So you can target up to your 3 opponents and make a 1/1 for each creature they have on the battlefield. So if they have 3 and 5 and 5, cool. End step, you pay 7 and you make 13 1/1s. Now, presumably, you're going to untap and overrun.
I would keep an eye on this too because I think this might have been reprinted in the Mardu pre-con.
Oh yeah,
it might go down.
Keep an eye because it's starting at $6.50, but by the time you see this, and by the time a week has passed, and you see this a week from now, it might be $4.50.
But it's $6.50 good, so if you buy it now, I highly recommend it at that price because BC has made so many tokens with this. I'm making an Adelaide deck right now. I'm thinking about making it $100, and at that point, I'm still thinking about splurging on this card because of how much power it really makes, and holding up on at end step, making it, having everyone flesh out their boards. You go, okay, actually, I'll be taking that many creatures. Thank you.
Yeah, having a instant speed token maker is like the hallmark of these token decks. You go end step, march of the multitudes, end step, secure the waste. That's cool. That's cool and all, but this doesn't scale with mana you pay. This scales with the size of the board state. So the more clogged we are, or the more ahead one player is, the better this is for just 3 or 5 mana. Fire it off. No one sees it coming. You throw down maybe a Cathar's Crusade beforehand or an overrun after, and now the game's just over, and you barely spent any mana on this. This is a really, really great way, one of the best ways in the format, to make instant speed tokens for such a small amount of mana.
I feel like there's so many white overrun type effects nowadays, whether that's Cathar's Crusade or you're playing like Moonshaker Cavalry, even if you're doing like Starlight Spectacular or anything like that. There's so many ways to be able to put counters and make things gigantic.
You think about Starlight Spectacular more than me, because I always forget that card exists and that it's
pretty good.
Not an acorn card.
No, it's not. It's a pretty cool card. I want to play it somewhere.
It's a lot of accounting, so if you're ready for that, feel free. And next is a land, it's a little pricier, but Card Kingdom does give you $50 or more orders have free shipping, which is the best way I could have worded those words. And if you're going to buy some Magic product.
With my code.
With my code, actually. You're
no.
Beezy birthday.
No, his birthday's passed. It's my birthday
What
next.
even is your code?
My code is miabday.
That sucks. Beezy birthday. Use that code. Anyway.
It's not Beezy birthday.
It's Beezy birthday. B-Day. Beezy B-Day. That's what I said the whole time. Anyway, 3 Tree City. Kind of expensive. It's $29. But I know another land that's very similar, and it's Nykthos, and that's a $50 land. And this is instead of it being a slam dunk for 1 and 2 color decks that are heavy on a color, this is a slam dunk for any Kindred deck. Full stop. End of story. This thing, I remember not being $29, and now I think I'm glad that, because we have 3 sitting in a binder. Now that I remember, we just bought 3 at 15 or whatever it was, and now it's going up, and I'm not surprised, but it's still worth $29.
I picked it up at 18, and I'm very happy that I did. I was like, ugh, when it first came out, because I like to play Kindred-type decks, you know?
Elves and vampires?
Yeah, I took apart my elf deck pretty recently, but vampires, you've seen how much work this puts in vampires, especially if you can chain it into other value-type lands. You know, you have a token or something, or, you have some sort of creature you want to die, you sack it like Phyrexian Tower, and then you use it to activate this, and then you have this gigantic board. I've made probably 15 mana off this land alone just because the board was clogged.
Yeah, I don't know if I needed to read this. I guess you could pay 2 and a tap and choose a color to add amount of mana of the number of creatures you control, the chosen type you played when this entered the battlefield to your mana pool. Best way to read that. We're totally finishing this video very strong. Don't even worry about it. The Retreat City, I think, is just a really, really staple-y card. I want to remind everyone it exists because way too many cards come out. It's so hard to keep track. This card exists. It's worth 30. I don't know if it's worth 50, so I also don't know when it's going to get reprinted. So be careful. If you haven't bought one for that Kindred deck, I think you kind of might have to bite the bullet and just, feel not 100% great. But know that this is now the best card in your Kindred deck.
I don't see this going down anytime soon.
Yeah, me neither.
And it's legendary like Nykthos, but with the new cards coming out like a Steward of the Harvest, if you can just crunch it with that guy, you can make a bunch of lands this. That could be really cool.
Crop rotate the 3 tree into something else, and then
crunch it.
Crunch it with the egg. That's apparently the word you use. You crunch it again, and now all your creatures are 3 tree city, and that's
Look,
great.
I feel like that was the point of Steward of the Harvest in general. That's the first place my mind went to, because Nykthos Legendary, you can't ever copy it or anything, but unless you just turn your creatures into it.
Okay, but let's get into a little bit of speculation. Now we're talking about, we like to play a little game where we buy 5 copies of a single card with the hopes that, and the expectation that it will go up over the course of the year, where at the end of the year we'll make a video and we compete and we see who had better speculation. So with that being said, and we are not trying to move the market or anything,
No.
Mia, what was your spec or how much money did you gain or lose last month, and what is your spec this month?
My spec, just as a reminder, was Dragonhawk last month. I think that this will have homes in both standard and commander decks when all of these dragon synergies come out, because Dragonstorm isn't even here yet. I know we've been talking about it a lot. Somehow it's not even here. It went up 50 cents. I think people are feeling a little bit of the hype just like I am. My spec for this month is going to be Anox Strike Leader. It is $2.99, and this is a pre-con only card, except for if you get the commander or the collector version, and that'll be the extended one. I'm getting the extended one here. I think that this card is an army in a can. I've played it multiple times at this point, and every single time I've played it, it's great. As long as you get it down very, very early, I think this is an amazing card. Or if your commander can attack pretty frequently, it will still trigger off that. I think it's awesome in these token decks, and I think there are so many token decks coming out that will want this card. I think we've also seen this when commander cards, like commander exclusive cards, come out. I spec'd last year on Agate Instigator. Maybe that was a private spec.
That paid off.
I don't know. It may have been a private spec, might have been a public spec. Either way, though, spec'd on it. Turned out very, very good. I'm hoping for similar results with this card.
Yeah, the pre-con exclusives have a chance to go up. My spec from last month was Universal Automaton, the foil, with hopes that maybe Mox Jasper does something with it. It's up 50 cents, so I'm even with you. I'm honestly surprised. That was a wild one. And I'm going for Afterlife with a Loam this time at $3.99. This card looks busted to me. I'm going to play it in every deck, so I'm not selling any of these. I hope they go up because I want to win this game, but I'm just going to probably play all 5 copies that I bought. Maybe I'll give one to you. But like, I just love the card. I think it's really ridiculous. And if I think it's ridiculous, hey, maybe other people will do too.
I think it will. I think people will. They play this and go, wow, that is so much value. And people love Breach the Multiverse. That went from $2 to $12. And that was one of my favorites
really did, yeah,
of that time. So I think it's very similar to that.
It's got that 4-for-1 field for it. If you want another 2-for-1 though, you can get this video and the next video, which is the most worth buying, for the price of one video, which is $0.